Hello everyone and welcome to Tika's Snackery Extras. Today we are going to be making these adorable Tony Chopper hat cake pops. I'm so excited. So let's go ahead and jump right into this tutorial. So the first thing I'm going to do is prep my cake ball. I'm going to start with a cookie scoop and I'm just going to scoop out a little bit of cake. That leveled off, and then I'm just going to cup my hands and roll this into a little ball. Now as you see, every time I open my hands, I'm just kind of reshaping and smashing. Now that I don't see any type of cracks or like real imperfections besides just sprinkles from my gloves, I can start shaping this to the shape that I want. So I kind of want this to end up looking like an air balloon. So I'm just going to take the bottom and I'm going to place 2 fingers almost on the end of my cake ball and 2 fingers in between those 2 like so, almost at the ends. And it's going to make a little bit of a square. I'm just going to squish a bit and that's going to give us this little shape right here. It's almost reminiscent of a skull. But the whole point of this is to kind of make the top part more bald and heavier than the bottom. So this is kind of the shape that we're going for. And in order to keep that shape, I like to place my little cake balls that I make into, this is a little art easel that I got from Michael's a long time ago. It's for paint and things like that, but look, it's multi-purpose in this house. I use it for all kinds of stuff when I'm creating Cakesicles and cake pops and cookies and things like that. It works very well to hold the shape of my cake balls as well as fondant, which I'll show you a little bit later on. So again, I'm rolling up my ball, getting it nice and rolled, making sure any places that has cracks or anything like that, I'm just rubbing it out and just reshaping everything to make it look nice. And then again, I'm going to do that lovely little square squeeze to reshape my cake ball to kind of make it look like, again, a hot air balloon. So now I'm going to go ahead and start adding sticks into my little cake balls right here. I like to let my cake sit for maybe like 5 minutes or so, just enough to get back to room temperature because, playing around with it in your hands does cause for the cake to get pretty warm. And that means it's going to be like really squishy, and that's not what we want. We want the cake to be a bit more chill and firm. So I let mine get room temp. And I'm just going to grab a stick and dip it into some melted chocolate and place my stick into the bottom of my little hot air balloon shape right here. I'm just going to slide it up some more. Make sure it's set in there really well. I'm going to wipe off this extra chocolate at the bottom. And I have a cake pop stand right here. So I'm just going to set that in there so that it can firm up completely. Now this chocolate I actually made and melted myself. This was just plain old white chocolate. In order for me to dye it this specific color, I used Color Mills Royal and Color Mills Teal. This gave me this perfect blue color that matches amazingly with Tony Chopper's really cute hat. I'm gonna go ahead and plop a stick into my next little cake ball right here. Slide it down there, make sure everything is nice, level, and wipe off that extra chocolate. And again, just placing it into a cake pop stand so that it keeps its shape with everything else. While my chocolate is still nice and soft, I'm just gonna mix it some more, make sure there are no lumps in there. So there's no lumpies or clumps in this chocolate. I'm gonna go ahead and dip my first cake pop straight down in there. And I love these silicone bowls and cups because I can just squeeze just a little bit to completely cover it, and it's not going to cause any issues.
In order for me to get the extra chocolate off of my cake pop, I don't like to tap it on the edge of the bowl. I like to use a little personal massager to gently shake the chocolate away. And I'm just holding the bottom of the stick to the top of the massager, and I have it on the first setting. This will gently shake off the chocolate as to not actually destroy my cake pop. If I tap my cake pop along the edges, I've learned that sometimes that'll shake the cake on my stick loose, and I don't want that. So this is a really easy alternative.
The hardest part about making these cake pops is definitely the decoration, so let's go ahead and get started with some of them now. I like to work with fondant for these. This fondant is not too stiff and it's not too soft. It's a really good texture to work with. I'm going to roll it into a snake. And here I have a fondant extruder. I'm just going to roll back the little screw inside, and I'm going to load this in like so. I have just a regular round extruder going on the top today, and I'm just going to screw that in place. The first thing I'm going to work on is the antlers, so I'm going to start by squeezing out some fondant. That looks good. For this, I like to use an X-Acto knife to cut off the ends so that they're pretty straight. I'm going to set that down. Have a little smiley face. I'm going to extrude another one. Cut it off like so. And then I'm going to place it right in the center of this one. Now, if this is a tacky, textured fondant, these two will stick together. If they don't stick together, then just use a little bit of water. But I'm going to use my X-Acto knife now, and I'm going to level out the ends like so. And I'm going to just set this extra fondant right there because we are going to use that for something. So now I'm just touching the ends together, and as you can see, it looks like a little U. So I have one little U around another little U. They're stuck together. And I'm going to take some of this extra fondant and just make it into a tiny little ball. And I'm going to stick it right at the end, right here. Now, this is going to be my antler for Chopper's little hat. I'm just gonna slide this off, and I'm actually gonna set it into my little paint easel thing right here so that it kind of gets that curved shape that you see in the finished product. So I'm gonna show you one more time. I'm just gonna pump out a little bit of fondant to make a U or a smiley, so we're gonna start off with. That one looks a little wonky, it's okay. We're gonna do another one like so. And I'm just gonna place that inside like so. And then use my X-Acto knife, and I'm just gonna cut off the extra little bits here. Like that. And then push them together, and my little ball got away from me that I rolled. Roll this little ball up and stick it on the end. And then I'm going to slide it right into this little hole right there.
Now here comes the fun part. I'm going to go ahead and start with one of my finished dipped cake pops, and I'm going to place it on this little coupler right here. I have a little bit of red fondant and I'm going to roll this out kind of thin. I don't want it to be super thin as I would normally roll my fondant for certain decorations, because this is going to be the brim of the hat and it's also going to be a little red centerpiece on Chopper's hat. So this looks good. I'm going to go ahead and take this rectangular cutter. This one is from Sweet Sugar Belle. And I'm going to take out a tiny little piece down here at the bottom of my red fondant. Now, as you can see, this is about an inch long. That's all you need. And I'm going to set this off to the side. Now with a round cutter, I'm just going to cut out a little crescent shape all the way into about the center of my little rectangle piece that I cut off. And that part is the brim of the hat. Now I'm going to grab that fondant that I set aside one more time, and using my fondant roller, I'm going to roll this out pretty thin this time. This is going to be that little centerpiece that is on Chopper's hat. So I want this to lay kind of flush with our cake pop. Now I'm going to take an even smaller round cutter, and I'm just going to cut out a little circle in my fondant. There you go. I'm going to set this off to the side, and now I can go ahead and start adding on all of my pieces. So I'm going to take a little bit of chocolate and I'm just going to add it to the brim of my hat on the crescent side, and then I'm just going to gently place it onto my cake pop. I'm adding it towards the bottom, so of course it looks like a hat, and just gently securing it in place. Now where you choose to stick the brim of your hat is your choice. I like to use the wider side of the hat so that it looks more so like how Tony Chopper's hat would look, but this is just completely up to you. I'm still using my coupler to hold my cake pop steady and stabilize it. That's the easiest way to add the decorations to this cake pop, and I would suggest that you find something equally awesome to use. But let's get back to it. I am taking a round cutter and I am just snipping off the end of that little circle that we had cut out before. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of chocolate as my glue, and I'm going to add it to the very top of the brim of the hat that we had placed on earlier, so that we can attach this little circle right on top. For this, I am using tweezers because it does make it a little bit easier to pick up these tiny pieces, but you can attach them however is easiest for you. I forgot to mention that the fondant that I am using is on like that medium consistency side, not too stiff, not too soft, which is my favorite to work with. So right now I'm just adjusting it into its place and making sure that the edges and everything are nice and smooth. Now we can go ahead and start adding on our antlers. So I let my antlers kind of sit for a little bit and stiffen up. They are pretty hard, and I'm just going to take a little bit of chocolate and I'm going to start adding it to the side of my cake pop right here. And I'm going to grab one of my antlers. I try to make sure that they are uniform, but you know, things happen. But I am just using some tweezers. And again, the decorations are the hardest part of these cake pops. And I'm just placing that on and just gently securing it into place. All right, that is holding steady. So I'm going to go ahead and start working on the other side. I have here my little Wilton decorating stick, and I'm going to take a little bit of chocolate and I'm going to add it right here on the other side. And I'm just going to grab another antler and just add it right on. And then I'm going to hold it steady for just a little bit to secure it into place. Our next step is going to be painting. I am using a little bit of chocolate paint in the color white for this, and I have a tiny little Wilton brush, and I'm just going to start with the outer edge of the round portion of Chopper's hat. So I'm just going to start outlining here, Now, even though this part I would say isn't technically hard, it is a bit on the tedious task side, so just know that this might take you a little bit of time depending on how much of a perfectionist you are. This could take a little while, but it is so worth it. It's all about the details for this cake pop, and this really brings out the look of Chopper's hat, and I think it turned out so adorable. This is the finished outline. I think it looks amazing. And now I am taking a little fondant tool and I'm going to add an X right in the center. I found that having this little indentation of the X made it a little bit easier for me to paint. So just wanted to throw that little tidbit out there. You can do it however you want, but this way really worked for me. Now I'm just taking some paint on a little paintbrush and I'm adding the dots that go around this little section on Chopper's hat. That looks good. So now I'm going to go ahead and start filling in the X. And this looks really good. So now I'm going to take my metallic decorating pen and I'm going to add a little detail to Chopper's antler. Now, I know that this is not the place where we actually add the little tag that is on Chopper's antler, but I just wanted this detail in there, so I'm adding it right here and I thought it was cute. The last part is the ears, so I'm taking some nice flesh colored fondant and I'm going to roll it out nice and thin. You will see a little bit of blue in my flesh fondant because there is a little bit of blue left on my gloves, but don't worry, it masks very well in the whole scope of things, so let's keep going. I have here a heart fondant punch, and this is by Wilton, and I'm just going to punch out a heart. And I am going to place it into my hand. So this is like the ugly side of the fondant. What I want is the really cute side. So I'm using my fondant tool to flip my heart over, and there we have a perfect heart. I'm using that same fondant tool and I'm starting in the middle of this heart, and I'm just going to slide all the way down to where it creases. I'm going to take my fingers and pinch them at the ends together. And there we have an ear for Chopper. So I'm going to show you one more time. I am taking my fondant punch and I am just going to punch a heart into my fondant. I'm going to place it into my hand. I'm then going to use my fondant tool and I'm going to flip my heart over to the pretty side. I'm going to use my fondant tool in the middle of my heart and drag down, and then I'm just going to pinch at the ends. And there we have another ear for Chopper. Now we are going to very carefully attach it with a little bit of chocolate in the corner. And I am going to be using tweezers to just slide this on. I'm also going to complete this very same step on the other side as well. So I am using a fresh cake pop as my example. This is actually about the hardest step of making these cake pops, getting these little tiny ears on. It's worth it. It's worth it, but it is hard. So I wanted to try to get a better angle so that you could see exactly how I am putting these on. If this is too difficult, you can actually just omit this step, but I just thought it was so worth it, and I think they came out so cute. This is what the finished product should look like in the end. I hope that you guys enjoyed making these along with me today, and I will catch you in the next Tika Snackeries Extras.